I did the Wild Bill Hickok television show for 7 years, yeah, along with Andy.
Moonlight glints off the still surface of a private pool in Benedict Canyon. A cigarette burns low in an ashtray beside two untouched glasses of scotch. Inside the bungalow, a phone sits off the hook again. To the world, he was the embodiment of rugged American masculinity. Cavalry officer, frontier hero, the square-jawed ideal stamped on every movie poster from Burbank to Brooklyn. But behind closed doors, his heart beat to a different rhythm, one that studios, censors, and gossip columnists would have crucified him for. A secret powerful enough to end careers. Who did he love in the shadows? And why did those names vanish from every biography, every interview, every memory? Everything will be revealed in today's video. He was born not to the silver screen, but to the dust of rural Iowa, where horizons stretched wide and secrets ran deep. Drafted during the war, he returned not with medals, but with a quiet intensity that caught the eye of a talent scout at a USO event. By 1946, he was under contract at Warner Brothers, cast as the stoic cowboy in The Fighting Seabees, a role that would cement his image as Hollywood's new iron-jawed hero. Within 2 years, he was starring opposite Ann Sheridan, then Bette Davis, then Joan Crawford, each pairing carefully curated by studio publicity to suggest a parade of glamorous, wholesome romances. The public ate it up. Magazines called him the last true gentleman of the screen. But insiders whispered otherwise. A production secretary once recalled finding him in tears after a late-night call from someone not on the approved list. Another time, a houseman at the Chateau Marmont noted how he'd slip out the service entrance after midnight, always alone, always heading east toward the homes of men whose names never appeared in photoplay. Two motifs begin here. The phone left off its hook, and a silver ring never worn on set left deliberately on his dresser before every premiere. The world saw a symbol of post-war virtue. Those closest knew he was living a double life, stitched together by fear, longing, and the velvet curtain of old Hollywood silence. It is in a crumpled letter discovered decades later in a locked Warner Brothers filing cabinet that his full name finally surfaces: Guy Madison. Dated June 12, 1951, the letter is addressed to an unnamed dear friend and opens with trembling honesty. If they knew who I truly am, they'd strip me of every frame I've ever shot. By 1951, Madison was at the height of his fame, starring in The Adventures of Wild Bill Hickok on television, his face on lunchboxes, his voice selling cigarettes. But the letter reveals a man drowning in duality. This is the moment the mask cracks not in public, but in ink. And with that name now spoken, the floodgates open. The golden cowboy of American television wasn't just playing a hero, he was hiding one. 1. Tab Hunter. They met at a charity polo match in Palm Springs, both posing for cameras in crisp white linen, both smiling for an audience that had no idea they'd already shared a quiet dinner the night before at a secluded villa rented under a pseudonym. Tab Hunter, luminous and boyish, was Warner Brothers' answer to James Dean, though far more carefully controlled. Their cover was effortless, two leading men bonding over horses and scripts, but the logistics were surgical. Separate cars, separate entrances to the same bungalow, midnight swims in a pool shielded by high hedges. According to a former Warner publicist, their trysts were scheduled like military ops, never on studio lots, never near press events, never after 2 a.m. The inciting incident came in 1955, when a jealous extra allegedly snapped a blurry photo of them leaving Musso and Frank through the back alley. The studio panicked. Within 48 hours, Tab was shipped off to Rome for a romantic photo spread with Sophia Loren, while our subject was forced into a staged engagement with a rising starlet from MGM. The fallout was swift. Tab's contract was quietly renegotiated, his leading roles diminished. He later wrote in his memoir, veiled but unmistakable, about a love that had to be buried before it ever bloomed. The cost? Not just heartbreak, but a career rerouted by fear. And as the flashbulbs popped on his fake engagement, he stared past the cameras, wondering if Tab was watching. Love in the shadows doesn't leave scars, it leaves silence. 2. Rock Hudson. They recognized each other instantly, not by name, but by posture. The way Rock tilted his head when lying, the practiced ease with which he laughed at studio parties while his eyes stayed distant. They met at a discreet dinner hosted by a closeted agent in the Hollywood Hills, where the wine flowed and the talk never touched on wives or girlfriends. Their connection was less romance than kinship, two men playing the same exhausting role on the world's biggest stage. Their secret logistics were minimalist brief encounters in rented bungalows near Malibu, always during location scouting trips. No letters, no calls, just presence. The inciting incident arrived not from outside, but within. Rock's sudden, very public courtship with Phyllis Gates in 1955. Industry whispers said it was a studio-mandated beard, orchestrated after a near exposure in Confidential magazine. Our subject watched from afar, heart sinking not out of jealousy, but recognition. He knew the script. He'd lived it. The escalation came when Rock, under pressure, began publicly distancing himself from certain friendships that didn't reflect his values. The consequence, a friendship severed. They never spoke again off camera. Years later, a Benedict Canyon houseman claimed he saw our subject standing outside Rock's funeral in 1985, not entering, just watching from behind a tree. The closing line echoes through time. When your love is a crime, even mourning must be done in secret. 3. Anthony Perkins. They met on the set of a forgotten Western in 1957. Perkins, fresh off Friendly Persuasion, cast as a nervous young deputy. Madison, the seasoned star, playing the marshal. Between takes, they talked books, not scripts. Perkins, velvet-voiced and introspective, didn't flirt. He listened. That was the danger. Their secret logistics were built on intellectual camouflage. Late-night script revisions in Madison's trailer, walks through the studio backlot under the guise of character bonding. But intimacy bloomed in the quiet. According to a production secretary, they once shared a single blanket during a cold night shoot, fingers brushing like it was an accident. The inciting incident? A studio executive walked in on them rehearsing a scene too close, too soft, too real. Within a week, Perkins was recast. The studio cited scheduling conflicts, but insiders say the real reason was a memo from the head of publicity. Madison's image is non-negotiable. The fallout devastated Perkins, who later channeled his pain into Psycho, a performance haunted by repression. As for Madison, he threw himself into work, hosting rodeos, endorsing rifles, becoming more manly by the day. The closing line cuts deep. Sometimes the most dangerous thing you can be is seen. 4. Sal Mineo. It began at a charity gala for underprivileged youth. Sal Mineo, barely 18, already famous for Rebel Without a Cause, approached Madison with wide-eyed admiration. But beneath the fanfare was something else. Recognition. Mineo, street-smart and sharp, saw through the cowboy facade. Their secret logistics were daring dinner at Chasen's under the pretense of mentorship, drives to Griffith Observatory, where they'd sit in silence, watching the city blink below. They never touched in public, but in private, Mineo's laughter was unguarded, his hands unafraid. The inciting incident came in 1959 when a tabloid tipster allegedly sold a story to Confidential about a TV hero and a young rebel. The studio moved fast. Mineo was abruptly paired with a female co-star for a series of photo ops. Madison was sent on a goodwill tour to military bases overseas. The escalation was brutal. Mineo's career stalled, his roles shrinking as rumors swirled. He later told a friend, "They let you be talented, but not true." The consequence? A slow fade into B-movies and off-Broadway obscurity. And though Madison never confirmed their connection, he kept a photo of Mineo in his wallet, found only after his death. One killer line lingers. In a town that sells dreams, truth is the one thing you can't afford. 5. Montgomery Clift. They crossed paths during a 1953 USO tour in Japan, both sent overseas to boost troop morale, both nursing private wounds. Clift, already fragile after his near-fatal car crash, moved like a ghost through the barracks. Madison, ever the stoic, offered quiet companionship. No grand declarations, just shared cigarettes under a foreign moon. Their secret logistics were minimal, no need for codes when you're thousands of miles from prying eyes. But back in Hollywood, caution returned. They met only in neutral spaces, a bookstore in Westwood, a bench in Griffith Park. The inciting incident, a leaked memo from Clift's therapist, allegedly obtained by a rival studio, referencing a mutual dependency with a prominent Western star. The studio didn't confront Madison, they simply stopped casting him in dramatic roles. From then on, he was confined to TV westerns and product endorsements. Clift's decline accelerated. Madison's stardom flattened into safe, sanitized repetition. The fallout wasn't explosive, it was erasure. And as Clift faded into legend, Madison became a footnote in his own life. The closing line haunts. Some loves don't end, they evaporate. This wasn't just personal discretion, it was systemic erasure. Warner Brothers, like every major studio, enforced ironclad morality clauses that allowed instant termination for conduct unbecoming a public figure. Publicists like Howard Strickling at MGM and Warner's own Fred Ziv operated like intelligence agents, planting fake romances, paying off photographers, and feeding Luella Parsons and Hedda Hopper just enough gossip to distract from the real scandals. Photoplay might gush over Madison's wholesome charm, while Confidential lurked in the wings, ready to expose anyone who stepped out of line unless the studio paid them off. A Benedict Canyon fixer, known only as Mr. Ellis, allegedly brokered deals between stars and tabloids, ensuring secrets stayed buried for a price. The machinery was vast, efficient, and merciless. Why? Because in post-war America, the image of the heterosexual hero wasn't just marketing, it was national ideology. To be gay was to be un-American. And so love was edited out of the frame, like a flawed negative burned before development. In 2003, during an estate sale of a former Warner Brothers archivist, a small cedar box surfaced. Inside, a single black and white photograph, torn cleanly down the middle. On one side, Guy Madison in full Wild Bill Hickok regalia. On the other, the blurred but unmistakable profile of Anthony Perkins. Leaning close, eyes soft. The photo had no date, no caption, just a smudged fingerprint on the back. A never-published image, possibly developed in secret, possibly meant to be destroyed. According to the auction catalog, later pulled under mysterious circumstances, the box also contained a folded note in Madison's handwriting. If you're reading this, I'm gone, and maybe now it's safe to remember. The artifact was never authenticated, never displayed, but its existence allegedly, reportedly speaks louder than any interview. It is proof that love existed, even when the world refused to see it. By the 1970s, Guy Madison's star had dimmed. Television westerns gave way to infomercials and minor conventions. He married twice, both unions, brief, both, reportedly arranged with studio approval. In private, friends say he grew quieter, more withdrawn. He never came out publicly. In a rare 1988 interview, when asked about the rumors, he simply said, "I loved who I loved, and I did what I had to do to survive." He died in 1996, largely forgotten by mainstream Hollywood. His obituary in The Hollywood Reporter mentioned his horses, his TV show, his military service, but not his heart. Today, as we revisit old Hollywood through a more compassionate lens, his story resonates not as scandal, but as sacrifice. The phone off the hook, the ring left behind, the names never spoken aloud. These are the relics of a generation forced to love in the shadows. But that was only the beginning. Now their silence speaks volumes. Guy Madison's story isn't just about hidden romances, it's about the brutal cost of conformity in an industry that sold fantasy while punishing truth. His life reminds us that behind every polished image, there are untold stories of longing, resilience, and quiet courage. In a world that demanded he be one thing, he dared to feel another and paid the price in fragments of a self he could never fully show. If this story moved you, if it made you think about the faces we celebrate and the truths we erase, then please consider subscribing and hitting the bell. Your support helps us uncover more hidden histories from Hollywood's golden age stories that deserve to be remembered, not buried. Because love, in any form, should never have to hide.